Al hanisim v'ala purkan v'ala gvuras v'al teshuos. Right? Al hanisim v'ala purkan. We thank God for the miracles, for the salvation, for the gvurot, for the heroics, for the salvation, and for the milchamot. Very strange. I can understand thanking God for the victories and the salvation. But why do we thank God for the milchamot? Isn't that strange? Huh? But why should we thank God for the battles themselves, Yehuda? Thank God for the nisim, purkan, gvurot, salvation, miracles, Moshe. But why thank God even for the milchamot? What's the message? We're going to say al nisim, right? Why do we thank God for the milchamot? What's the message? The message is that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And that's the whole Purim message. Whatever challenges and hardship we each face, whether individually or collectively, they have been given to us uniquely, designed by God to enhance our spiritual growth. It is only, if you look back on life, a person grows not from his tranquil moments, but a person grows from the tzarot. That's the way it is. So we thank God even for the milchamot. It's through the struggle that we can grow, progress, and reach great heights of Kedusha. So yes, we have to thank God not just for the victories, but even for the battles themselves. Fighting battles brings out the best of us. And we see that individually. You look back on life, true spiritual growth, Rabbi Yaakov, comes only with what? With tough moments in life. And what's the analogy? If you want to get the precious olive oil out of the olive, you got to squeeze the olive. If you want to get the precious juice out of the grapes, you got to squeeze the grapes.
I sure like to squeeze juice.
Right? Grape juice, Yehuda, get it? Oh, grape juice. Very interesting. Okay. So that's what it is. So we have to thank God, strangely, even for Haman, even for Ahmadinejad, even for the President Obama. Pretty straight, right? We'll see how that works out. That whatever God gives a person, even the Hamans, has a purpose. Because the Talmud tells us in Megillah that Haman was good for the Jews. Because Haman did more for the Tshuva movement than all of the 48 prophets in Tanakh. All the 48 Nevi'im, they said do Tshuva, went in one ear out the other. Haman came along, Ayatollah Khamenei came along, and all the Jews, they all did Tshuva. So we're going to see how this works out through Purim, that even the hardship in life are tailor-made, designed for us to what? To get closer to Hashem. Sometimes there's tender love, sometimes there's tough love, but it's two sides to the same coin, and we'll see how that works out in the whole Purim story. And how a person has to be happy whatever happens to him in life. The word Purim means lottery, and the topic of today's talk is what? How to be happy with your lot in life. But before we get to that, it's just amazing that the Parsha of the week always speaks to current events. We read the Parshas Tetzaveh. We just finished reading Parshas Tetzaveh. That was the week before Purim. And this week we're going to read Parshas Kisisa, the week of Purim. So there has to be a connection. The end of Parshas Tetzaveh says, "Echiper achat bashana, hakipurim achat bashana." The end of the pasuk says that the Yom Kippur grants kapara, achat bashana, achat bashana. Once a year. Says the word hakipurim. So the Ariya Kodesh asks, why does it say achat bashana twice? The very last pasuk in Parshas Tetzaveh. You get kippurim, achat bashana, achat bashana. Why twice? Once it's referring to Kippurim, Yom Kippur. And the second Achad Bashana is referring to what? Purim. So the last pasuk in Parshas Tetzaveh has the word HaKippurim, and the Zohar says Yom Kippurim. Somehow Yom Kippur is a day like Purim. Seems to be unbelievable, because if you think of no 2 days that are totally opposites, it's what? Yom Kippur and Purim. Yet the Zohar says, it never says Yom Kippur. That's Yiddish. It always says Yom Kippurim, literally, which means what? A day like Purim. So therefore, the last pasuk in Tetzaveh says the word Achat Bashana twice and has the word Kippurim. So the Riyah Kodesh, based on the Zohar, says once a year we get Yom Kippur, and we get twice a year. Purim is also, Moshe, a day like what? Strange, like Yom Kippur. How could that be? Well, the Mishnah tells us in Masechta Yuma that Yom Kippur only atones sins bein Adam lamokoim. Only sins between man and God. Sins between man and man, Yom Kippur does not atone. So what day does atone for sins between bein Adam lechavero? Purim. Through Mishloach Manot, Metonas Levyonim, you get kapara bein Adam lechavero. And we know that a sin between the Adam lechavero is worse than a sin between man and God. Because a sin between man and God, it's between you and God. You didn't put on tefillin, you didn't eat kosher, you sinned against God. But when you sin against a fellow human being, you're sinning against him and his godly image, and his tzelem Elohim. So a sin against a fellow human being is worse. So therefore Yom Kippur only atones bein Adam lamokoim. But Yom Kippurim, Purim, through Mishloach Manot, Matanas Lavyonim, you get kapara bein Adam lechavero, which the sin is even worse. When you wrong a fellow Jew, you're wronging him and his chelik Elohim Yamal. So in a way, Moshe, Purim is even holier, what? Than Yom Kippurim. Very strange. Very strange. Why is that? So the Riyah Kodesh says, Purim, if utilized properly, can be Yotek Kadosh Miyoim HaKippurim. Because the Riyah Kodesh says the real test of Kedusha is what? Is found when you're able to elevate the Gashmiut. To be Mekadesh. There's a Talmud statement, Ein Kiddush Ela Mukam Sudah. When you make Kiddush, you have to have a Sudah, otherwise you're not Yotzei Kiddush. But the Riyah Kodesh gives it a Kabbalistic interpretation. Ein Kiddush El Mokam Sudah. The real test of Kedusha is not to deny Gashmiut, but to what? To be Makadeshit. Wow. All aspects of life have to be what? Infused with Kedusha. If you want to gauge and measure one's Kedusha, it's not the way he fasts. It's the way he what? Feasts. Because when a person is fasting and he's tired and hungry, he has no koyach to sin. Who'd want to sin with him anyway? It doesn't smell so good, right? Right? Yom Kippur, you can't take a shower, you can't even wash your mouth out, you're tired, you're hungry. If you wanted to sin, you'd have a tough time doing it. You're oisgemuchit. How do you say that? Exhausted. But on Purim, when you're indulging, Alpha became, you remember you're a Jew. That's more difficult. So the true test of Kedusha is the way one behaves, not when he runs away from materialism and Gashmiut, but when he what? Indulges, and he remains that he realizes he's a Jew, and he behaves accordingly. So the way to measure Kedusha is not the way one fasts, says the Ari, but the way one feasts. How do you behave when you're imbibed? That's the true test of what? Of Kedusha. So therefore, Purim, if utilized, on Yom Kippur we serve God with our souls. On Purim we serve God with our bodies. And that's more difficult to do. Now, we said that the Parsha of the week speaks to current events. Parshas Kisisa is always read the week of Purim. What does Parsha Kisisa got to do with Purim? When Moshe came down the mountain, he had the Shekhinah on his face. And it says, when Moshe finished speaking to the Jews, Vayiten al ponav masveh. Moshe put a mask on his face. This week's Parsha. Moshe had the Shekhinah on his face. When he finished speaking with the Jews, Vayiten al ponav masveh. He put a mask on his face. What's the message, Yehuda? Why did Moshe put a mask on his face? When he was speaking to the Jews, he didn't have a mask. When he was speaking to God, he did not have a mask. So when did he wear a mask?
After he spoke to the Jews?
Oh. So what's the message? Okay, stay tuned. All of us wear a Purim mask all year. We pretend to be who we're not. We're all masquerading, putting on an act. But when we face God, like Moses did, we have to what? Remove the mask. And when we're teaching Torah, when Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching Torah, he also removed the mask. So in front of God, in front of your students, you can't wear a mask. When you're engaged in other aspects of life, you can put on a mask. But before God, and when you're teaching, like Moshe Rabbeinu, he removed the mask. So you have the mask in the Parsha of the week. The English word mask comes from the Hebrew masveh. Vayiten al ponav masveh. He put a mask on his face. Pretty interesting. That the Parsha of the week always speaks to what's happening. To what's happening. And you need to know the current events. It's just amazing. The Megillah is playing out in front of our eyes. The current events. Today's Haman is in the same place. It's only fast forward 2,400 years later. What's 2,400 years, right? To God, it's a blink of an eye. You have the current events in the Megillah. I mean, it's unbelievable. Today's Haman, same place, Poras, Iran. Esther comes from Binyamin, pleading for the Jewish people. She was also uninvited. And we have Binyamin Netanyahu pleading for the Jewish people, also uninvited by Achashverosh. Get it? Obama, Achashverosh. It's just amazing, right? And Mordechai and Esther sounded the Za'akah. And they both come from Shevet Binyamin. And our Binyamin Netanyahu, who made a Kiddush Hashem yesterday, he's also sounding the Za'akah. But J Street is out to lunch. They're busy with the party. Nothing has changed, Moshe, in 2,400 years. Mordechai and Esther were screaming Za'akah. But the Jews were busy partying with Achashverosh. It's just incredible. 2,400 years later, you have Binyamin, Prime Minister Binyamin, in the role of Esther, who comes from Binyamin, sounding the Za'akah. For the new Haman, his name is Ayatollah Khomeini, Kakamemi Khomeini, same address, Paris, Iran. But the Jews are also busy with the party. The J Streeters are busy with the party with the new Achashverosh. Who's that, Moshe? President Obama. It's just amazing. All the characters. Achashverosh, Obama, Binyamin, Netanyahu, Binyamin, Esther and Mordechai come from Binyamin. It's unbelievable. The Megillah is playing out in front of our eyes, surely. And we know we're going to have a happy ending because I know the script. Moshe, I have the script. The modern day Haman will wind up on the same tree with the ancient Haman. And the new Achashverosh will wind up like the old Achashverosh, right? This is only a test. But why is God putting us through this anguish? What's the purpose that Hashem puts us through this anguish? So we have to understand what is happening. Purim, it's a cover story. What's God's plan? And the Rambam tells us that all the books of Tanakh will become Botel when Mashiach comes. The only books of Tanakh will have it be the Torah and the Megillah Esther. All the other books won't be needed anymore except the Torah and Megillah Esther. Why? Why will Esther be read even in the Messianic era? Because the message of Esther is that all evil gezerot, a modern day Haman, a modern day Achashverosh, all the anti-Semitism, it's all designed for one purpose. Mickey, what's that purpose? To bring us back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Wow. One purpose, to get the Jews to return to God, to return to themselves. This messer of Geulah, following Tshuva, is so potent, so powerful, than all the rest of Tanakh. Because again, Haman accomplished what all the Nevi'im could not accomplish. Moshe, he got the Jews to do Tshuva. And now we have Hashem's plan again, with the new Haman and the new Achashverosh. Once again, God's plan is to cause the Jews to do Tshuva and to bring the final Geulah. Now, Purim's legacy, be happy with your lot. The word Purim, Lillian, means what? Lot. Is that a strange name to call a holiday? Because Haman made a lottery, which is the best month to kill the Jews, so therefore we have to call the holiday lottery? Why do we call the holiday lottery? That's Purim's legacy. Be happy with your lot. Unlike Haman and Adam. Incredible. What was Adam and Haman's downfall? There's an amazing Gemara in Chulin, page Kuf Lametes. Haman min HaTorah minayin. Where is Haman found in the Torah? It's a strange question because Haman lived centuries after the Torah was already what? Written. Written and given, right? Centuries later. So the Talmud says, Haman min HaTorah minayin. Gemara in Chulin. So the Gemara says, yes, Haman is found in the Torah. When God tells Adam Arishon, Hamin ha'etz, did you eat from the tree? Hamin ha'etz. Get it? Hamin, Haman. Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat? So what's this, a game? Just because it says Hamin ha'etz, that's Haman. There are no dots in the Torah scroll. The word Haman, the word Hamin. From that tree, did you eat? What is the Talmud saying? That Haman is found in the sin of what? Of Adam and the Eitz Hadas. What does it mean? There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Mayim Ginovim Yimtaku. Stolen waters are what? Sweet. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? Think about it. Adam and Chava had all of the delicious fruits, whatever they wanted in the Gan Eden. All the trees were there for their enjoyment. But there's one tree that what? They couldn't have. But every other tree was available to them. So what? They couldn't enjoy what they had because they focused on the tree they couldn't have. They had a bad hair day. All of the delicious fruits and trees you had, a luscious Gan Eden, eat all you want. But God said, except one tree you can't have. So instead of enjoying what they have, they couldn't because they focused on what? What they couldn't have. So it ruined them. They couldn't appreciate what they have. Don't worry, be happy. No, they couldn't be happy. At one tree they couldn't have. You can't focus and appreciate what you have because the Yetzer Hara says that's one tree. That's the best. Forget about what you have. Focus on what you don't have. So that's exactly the downfall of Adam and Chava, and that's the downfall of Haman. Adam and Chava were not happy with their lot. So they were ruined because they couldn't focus on what they have because they focused on what they couldn't have. And that's exactly what destroyed Haman. Hamin ha'etz. Haman had it all. The prime minister of the Persian Empire. the second most powerful man on the face of the earth, under Achashverosh. Wealth, fame, a large family. But he had a bad hair day because this one Jew, Mordechai, sitting at the king's gate, was like a bone stuck in his throat. So he couldn't appreciate and focus on what he has because that Mordechai gave him a bad hair day. So Amina Eitz, Haman, was guilty of the same sin of Adam and Chava. Both of them, Rabbi Yaakov, were not happy with their lot. And that ruins people, right? I have what? A Volkswagen. My neighbor has a Cadillac. So you can't appreciate your Volkswagen. Or I have a Chofshi. No, my neighbor has a car. Appreciate what you have in life. Your family, your position. No. Yetzirah says, no. You have to what? Aspire what the other guy has. And that ruined Adam and Chava. And that ruined Haman. So the message of the Megillah is to be happy with our lot in life. Don't act like Adam and don't act like what? Haman. Appreciate what you have. And therefore, Mishinichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. The Talmud says, when Adar comes in, increase joy. What about the Shinichnas Nisan? Increase joy. Nisan, we got redeemed from Egypt. The Shinichnas Sivan, we got the Torah. No. What's so unique about Adar? Okay, we were saved from destruction. But on Pesach, we were saved also. And it doesn't say in the Torah, in the Talmud, Shinichnas Nisan, Marvin B'Simcha. What's so unique about Adar? To answer this question, you have to ask another. The Megillah says, Ish Yehudi hoya b'shushan abira, u'shmoi Mordechai. Ish Yehudi. Mordechai was the Rosh of the Sanhedrin. And the Megillah calls him Ish Yehudi. What does Ish Yehudi mean? A Jewish boy. A Jew boy. A Jewish man. He was the Rav HaRashi of Klal Yisrael. Gershom Yidas. Imagine calling Rav Moshe Feinstein. Imagine Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zechat Tzaddik Yivracha. No, I mentioned him. Imagine calling him Jew boy. Mordechai was Rav Moshe Feinstein of his generation. And the Megillah says, Ish Yehudi, Ushmoi Mordechai. Not rabbi, doctor, chief rabbi, which he was. A Jewish man, and his name was Mordechai. You don't need titles, rabbi, doctor. Appreciate the fact that you were born a Yid. For that alone should make me very happy. Thank God I was born a Jew. I wasn't born a Mormon or Episcopalian. That should make me very happy. And the question is why? Ish Yehudi. Because the Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael yesh lam chelik l'olam haba. Every Jewish person has a share in the world to come. Every Jewish person has a piece of the rock. Every Jewish person has a piece of eternity. For that alone, I should be what? Very happy. I don't need the titles in life. Mordechai is happy. Ish Yehudi. I'm eternal. I'm a chelik Elahai mimal. I'm a tzelem Elohim. Wow, Moshe. For that alone, that's the source of the joy. That's what Adar is all about. Be happy with your lot. Be happy that you were born a Jew. That should make me very happy. And therefore, we read Tehillim 22 on Purim, Ayelet HaShachar. Ayelet HaShachar, the Talmud says, refers to what? To Esther. And there's a pasuk, V'anoichi talat. King David says the Jewish people are compared to a toilat. A toilat means a caterpillar. Now I can understand the Russian bear, the American eagle, but why does King David call the Jewish people in Psalm 22 a caterpillar? Isn't that strange? So the Kabbalah explains that the secret of the revival of the dead is contained the caterpillar, the cocoon, and the butterfly. The caterpillar crawls into a cocoon. The cocoon is actually a tomb. And it decomposes. Is that the end of the story, Rabbi Yaakov? No. When the time comes, out pops a beautiful butterfly. So the Jewish people are called Toilat, because the secret of the resurrection of the dead is contained in the Toilas. That we never die. We are like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. Death is only a temporary stage. The grave is a cocoon. That's why that should make me very happy. I'm a piece of the rock. God calls himself in Deuteronomy 32, Hatzur Tamim Pa'olo. There's amazing pasuk in Deuteronomy 32. Devarim 32, God calls himself the rock. Solid as a rock. Hatzur Tamim Pa'olo. The rock. Why is God called the rock? I am a rock. It's a symbol of what? It's strength, permanence. And then the Torah goes on in the verse 32, Ki chelek Hashem amo. Ki chelek Hashem amo. God is a portion of his people. That every Jew has a chelek Elohai mimal. Every Jew is piece of the rock. That's why I should be happy with my lot in life, no matter what I have or I don't have. That's the message of Purim. Why the Megillah doesn't say Rabbi, Doctor, Chief Rabbi Mordechai. It says Ish Yehudi Ushmoi Mordechai. That's enough to make me happy. I'm part of eternity. I have the promise of Tchias HaMesim. Pretty amazing, huh? Pretty amazing. Now, why do we wear masks on Purim? Why do we wear masks on Purim? Is it a child's game? Hester Punim, right? God hides behind the mask. And our job in life is to what, Yehuda? Unmask him, not to be fooled by the mask. God's mask. Ha-tevaz gematria Elokim. We call it nature. But the numerical value of the word nature in Hebrew is what? God. Except he's wearing a mask. The tafkid of Purim is to take off God's mask. To see him in a butterfly, in a leaf, in a snowflake. That's God. But you take off his mask. That's why Purim is such a holy day. It's the day, Mickey, we get to unmask God. And we say to him, you can't fool me, God. Peekaboo. I know you're playing a game, because if God weren't wearing the mask, we'd have no free will. We'd all be like robots. And God doesn't want puppets, he wants partners. So to be his partner, he has to play the game, hide behind the mask, and see you can see through me. You want to be fooled? It's up to you. Hayelat HaShachar. Again, the psalm that we read on Purim. Psalm 22. Esther is called Hayelat HaShachar. Hayelat HaShachar means the dawn in Hebrew. Why is dawn called Shachar? From the root Shachor. What does Shachor mean? Black. What has black got to do with dawn? So the Vilna Gaon says that the blackest hour of the night comes before dawn. And so too, Esther came on the scene, Moshe, in the blackest hour of Jewish history. And when things look so black, we know what, Mickey? That the dawn of redemption is right around. How do I know? Because the blackest hour of the night is right before dawn. If that's true in the physical world, it's certainly true in the spiritual world. So because things look so black today, with the new Haman in Paras, Iran, to destroy all the Jews, v'yoyim echad, like the old Haman said, a nuclear missile, one day. The language is the same. Moshe, it's frightening that the Haman today speaks the same language of the Haman of 2,400 years ago. Lahashmid, lahareg, abed, as kol ha-Yehudim b'yoyim echad. That's exactly what the Ayatollah Khamenei just tweeted the message. If you heard in Bibi's speech yesterday, the Ayatollah Khomeini tweeted, he wants to annihilate the Jewish people in one day. Could that be a coinky dinky? But he'll wind up where the old Haman winds up. I'm sure there's plenty of room left on the tree. But anyway, Rashi makes an amazing statement. Ayelat hashachar shahametim b'shat nitilat neshama royin pnei hashchina. In this week's parsha, God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, no human being can see me while he's alive. But the Kabbalah says, shahametim b'shat netilas neshama royin pnei hashchina. In this world, we're all wearing a mask. What's the mask, Yehuda? My body. Don't confuse me with my bodysuit. I'm a soul man. The body is only my mask that conceals my godly soul. In this world, we're wearing a mask. It's called my body. And he's wearing a mask. What's the mask called? Hateva, nature. But when a person passes on to eternity, his mask comes off, and God's mask comes off. Pretty interesting, huh? Now, the Talmud says in Tractate Megillah, you're supposed to drink on Purim until you don't know the difference between Haman and Mordechai. Isn't that weird?
Does that mean you're supposed to get drunk?
No, it doesn't mean. It's supposed to be a spiritual high. And I'll give you the secret. You're supposed to be spiritually high. You drink a little bit, little more than normal, that's all, and they get spiritually high. On which idea? That whether it's Haman or Mordechai, it really doesn't matter, because it all comes from the one above. The most important statement in the Jewish religion is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Why is that the most important statement of Jewish religion? Who are we talking to? The guy in the mirror. Shema Yisrael, listen up. Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yehuda, it's Midas HaRachamim. That's good times. That's Mordechai. Elokeinu, what's Elokeinu? Elokeinu is what? Is Haman. Haman. Hashem Echad. It's all one. It's an illusion. It's a mask. This Olam HaSheker. Hashem Echad. God is all one. But sometimes he appears to us through a Mordechai. And Chas v'Sholom, sometimes he appears to us through a Haman. That's part of the game. That's the mask. Don't be fooled. Hashem Echad. It's all God. But we can't see it. But on Purim, we get to see it through the Yayin. Mishinichnas Yayin Yotze Sod. Yayin is Gematria Sod. Who's good in Gematria, Rabbi Yaakov? Yayin, Yud Yud Nun is Gematria how much? 70. And Sod? 70. 70. When the wine, all year long, we can't see. How does Mordechai and Haman, how is the two sides of the same coin? I understand Yud Kei Vav Kei Rachamim. But how could it be the same with Elokeinu, tragedy lo yaleinu? I can't see it. Hashem Echad. But when you drink the wine, the secret comes out. What's the secret? It's all God. But he's wearing the mask. Whether God sends a Mordechai or a Haman, it's all for one purpose, to get the Jews to come closer to him. Sometimes a Mordechai will do it, the Chas v'Sholom, sometimes a Haman. We call it tender love, or Chas v'Sholom, tough love. But it's all love. Hashem Echad. That's the Jewish religion in one what? In one sentence. That sums up what it means to be a Jew. What? So b'shenechta sadar marme b'simcha. Right? The Gadol Hador is called a Jew boy. Mordechai says, I don't need the titles to make me happy. You know what makes me happy? I was born a Jew. I'm a piece of the rock. I'm eternal. I'm a chelik olam haba. I have part of God inside of me. That's why you should be happy with your lot in life. Pretty amazing. Now, 3 years after the Holocaust, Yehuda, a third of our people were destroyed. We built this wonderful country, the envy of the whole world. The leader in high-tech, medicine, defense, you name it. The most of the companies on the NASDAQ come from little Israel. We're smaller than New Jersey. What's it all about? How could we rise from the ashes of Auschwitz to become the envy of the world? Isn't it amazing? Well, it's amazing. Zechariah chapter 8, 2,400 years ago, said, Ko Yomer Hashem, thus said God, Od Yeshu Zikenim Rechovot Yerushalayim, Rechovot Ha'ir Yemolu Yeladim Mischakim. Old people will fill the streets of Jerusalem, children laughing and playing in the streets of Jerusalem. He said this when Jerusalem was laying in ruins. Ki yipole be'enai sheret ha'am hazeh b'yom ha'mehem. The survivors were ki yipole mazeh yipole. It's too marvelous to believe that such a thing could happen, that after the Churban, that after Auschwitz, Zechariah is speaking about after Auschwitz. There were millions of prophets, says the Megillah. How come only 48 are recorded? Because those millions of prophets spoke for what? For their time. We don't need to know. It's ancient history. But the 48 prophets in Zechariah, they're recorded because they speak to us today. The 48 Nevi'im that are recorded speak to us. Ki yipole be'enei sheret ha'am hazeh. It's a pell in the eyes of the survivors from Auschwitz that such a thing could happen. That the Jewish people once again will build Jerusalem and there'll be laughing children playing in the streets and old people sitting on the park benches. God says, Gam be'enai yipolenu Hashem. God says, even in my eyes, it's what? Amazing. God, Zechariah 8 quotes God. Gam be'enai yipolenu Hashem. God said it's also a pella in my eyes that such a thing can happen. That after Auschwitz, the Jewish people should rebuild this Garden of Eden in the Middle East. The leader in every field, medicine, high-tech, defense, science, you name it. God says, yes, in my eyes, it's also marvelous. We have to appreciate the Pele. And that's why we're so hated. Look at them and look at us.
So jealous.
A villa in a sea of savages. Savages. And look at us. That's why they can't stand us. Wow. Now, there's 6 mitzvot on Purim. Everybody thinks there are 4, but there's 6, right? Number 1, read the Megillah. Number 2, to say Ala Nisim. Number 3, to read Vayovei Amalek on Friday morning, Exodus 17. Number 4, Matonos Levyonim. Number 5, Mishloach Monot. And number 6 is the Suda Im Yayin. Of all the 6 mitzvot, which are the most important? The Rambam says the most important of all the 6 mitzvot is what? Matonos Levyonim. Is to give gifts to poor people. Why is that? Because when you give gifts to poor people, you're able to appreciate what you have in life. Look at the guy who's worse off than you. Baruch Hashem, you're able to give to others. So Matanas Lavyonim helps you appreciate your lot in life. When you compare what you have to what he doesn't have, how well we have it compared to the Ani Nebuch that's a miskein. So therefore, to be Sameach Aniyim on Purim, Rambam says the most important mitzvah, it helps us focus and appreciate my lot in life compared to the Nebuch, the person that doesn't have. That's the most important mitzvah of the 6 mitzvahs on Purim. Now, the next Purim, all the Jews were busy with the party, right? They're busy at the party like J Street, right? Haman is plotting to annihilate us with Achashverosh in the White House. And J Street, Moshe, is busy partying. Nothing much has changed in 2,400 years. Some people never get it. They just don't get it. Why do we drink on Purim? It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. We drink to remind us that in an absurd, twisted way, we owe our continued existence to whom? To Haman. Isn't that ridiculous? You can't stay sober when you know that. The Jews were assimilating like there's no tomorrow in Achashverosh's pagan party. They couldn't run away faster from their Judaism. It took a Haman to bring us back to who we are. So we drink. It's too ridiculous to stay sober. We owe our continued existence. If it wasn't for Haman, the Jewish people would have assimilated and disappeared, Moshe, 2,400 years ago. Isn't that crazy? You can't be sober when that sinks in. We need the stimulus of wine to celebrate our victory over Haman, who arose because of our desire to assimilate. And we want to become more Persian than the Persians. The Jews in Germany said they're more... What? Now, it's amazing. When the final decree of Haman came down and was publicized in the Persian Times, what was the reaction of the Yidden? It says, V'ir Shushan Nevocha. The city of Shushan was Nevocha. They read the Persian Times. What does Nevocha mean? Perplexed. Doesn't mean trembled. It means perplexed. I would say the Ir Shushan, panic, trembling. It says Ir Shushan Nevocha. Isn't that a strange reaction? The Jews of Shushan were perplexed. Not sad, not panicky, perplexed. They said, how could this be? Who's more loyal to the fatherland than we Jews? The Jews in Germany wore their World War I medals on the trains to Auschwitz. You could look it up. The Jews in Deutschland, they wore their World War I medals on the trains to Auschwitz. Nevocha! How could this be happening to us, Gershom? We're more loyal than the Persians. Deutsch before, right? That's what they said. How could this be happening to us? They were perplexed. The timeless message of the Megillah is that don't get too cozy in Chutz La'aretz. Come home to Israel. You won't be able to stay in Borough Park forever. Not even in Lakewood. You're fooling yourself. The Jews in Shushan thought that what? We are very loyal citizens. How could this be happening to us? The Jews in Deutschland can't be happening to us. The most loyal, the Jews in World War I, they fought the German army. The highest percentage of medals for bravery in proportion were given to Jewish soldiers. So it's geholfen like Teute Bankis. Did it help them? Hitler didn't care. Hitler didn't care. So the message is, come home to Eretz Yisrael. It's just amazing. The Talmud in Chulin says, Esther min ha-Torah minayin. Where is Esther found in the Torah? Strange. Esther lived centuries after the Torah was given. But there's a pasuk in Deuteronomy 31, V'anoichi astir ponai. God says, I will hide my face. Megillat Esther, what does Megillat Esther mean? Legalot et Hester. Megillat Esther means to reveal the hidden one. God, I'm not fooled by your mask. Peekaboo. I know it's only a game. See through the mask. Rav Weissmandl, who perished in the Holocaust, wrote a book called Toras Chemed. And he didn't have a computer. Oh, he did survive, Baruch Hashem, he survived. Baruch Hashem, he survived. But he wrote a book called Toras Chemed, a Kabbalistic work, and he says something amazing. That Esther is actually found in the Torah by skipping letters in the Torah. He did this before computers. He says as follows: if you count the letters in Megillat Esther, there's exactly 12,110 letters. Quick, Yehuda, how many letters are there in Megillat Esther?
12,110 letters.
Right. Now he says as follows: if you look at the first word in Bereshit, he says from the Aleph in Bereshit, you count 12,110 letters, you'll get to a Samach. You hear? Then you count another 12,110 letters, you'll get to a Tuf. You count to another 12,110 letters, you're going to get to a Reish. Should I repeat that? I have a Weissman without a computer. There's 12,110 letters in the Megillah. If you count from the first pasuk in Bereshis, you look at an Aleph there, the first letter of Esther's name, count 12,110 letters in the Chumash, you'll get to a Samach. Count another 12,110 letters from that Samach, you're going to get what? A Tuf. From that Tuf, count another 12,110 letters, what are you going to get? Koinky Dinky? Rav Weissmandl counted it. Now, how could a human being have written the Torah? Huh? Spells out Esther with the skipping letters. That's how many letters are there in Megillah, 12,110. And Aleph, Samach, Tov, Reish, spaced out. There's exactly 12,110 letters that spells out
Esther.
Koinky Dinky? I don't think so. Therefore, the rabbis are called Sofrim. Why the rabbis called Sofrim? What does Sofrim mean? They count. They count the letters. Nosod HaTorah. Therefore, if one letter is missing, the entire Torah scroll is puzzled. Because it's not just one letter, it throws off the whole code. That's in divine, incredible secrets of the Torah that only God could have written. So every letter in the Torah is what? How many names does God have? The Ramban says that God has 304,805 names. Why? Because how many letters are there in a Torah scroll? Last time I counted, 304,805. You don't believe it, you can count. The Ramban says that every letter in the Torah is what? A name of God. So quick, Rabbi Yaakov, how many names does God have? Names, 304,005. How do I know? That's how many letters there are. So therefore, if one letter is missing in the Torah scroll, the entire scroll is puzzled. It's not just one letter, it's what? One of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pretty amazing, huh? Now, Tanit Esther. Why are we fasting today? Esther fasted when? On Pesach. Check the Megillah. She fasted on Pesach. Why are we fasting today? So the Rambam tells us that this fast is actually mentioned in the Megillah. It says, Divrei Hatzomot Zakatam. On the 13th day of Adar, which is when? The Jews stood up to defend themselves. They went to war. And in biblical times, Gershom, when Jews went to war, what did they do? They fasted. Says the Rambam, that's why we're fasting today. It has nothing to do with Esther. It's a misnomer. She fasted on Pesach, but the real reason is on the 13th of Adar, check the Megillah, the Jews, the IDF, they defended themselves. They wiped out 75,000 Amalekite terrorists. So in biblical times, when Jews went to war, they fasted. And the Megillah says, Divrei Atzomot. So the Rambam says that's the reason for what? For the fast. That's the reason for the fast.
There weren't a lot of restaurants on the
right? Another reason why we fast today, that's the tikkun for the Jews attending the wild party by Achashverosh, where the food was not kosher and the entertainment certainly was not kosher. So, what? So, whenever the party was, no. But we want to make a tikkun. We want to make a tikkun, so therefore we what? We fast. Well, we had no reason going to that party. So the fasting is a tikkun for what? For the feasting.
And they enjoyed themselves.
That's right. And ironically, that the feasting on Purim is also what? A tikkun. For the feasting. There are two ways to atone for sins of what? Of eating and drinking. One is to fast, and the other is to indulge the feast. And this time do it l'shem shamayim. We sin through eating and drinking, so God says now, do it my way. Da 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 da. What? 1 second. Don't mix me up. So the sin was the feasting at a non-kosher meal with non-kosher entertainment. So what's the tikkun? A kosher meal with kosher entertainment. In Judaism, the tikkun comes from the chet. This week's parsha, the Jews build an egel. Right? A golden calf. And God commands them to build a golden mishkan. Rashi proves that what came first? What came first? Rashi proves chronologically that first the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, and only afterwards did God say, build me a golden mishkan. Does God need a golden mishkan? God said, Mizbach Adama Tasali. For me, it's enough an altar of earth. But the Yidden, they're into gold, Goldstein, Goldberg, gold. Huh? The Jews, they said they like gold. So they build a golden getchka. So God says, take gold and do it my way. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. I'm not going to give up my day job. Don't worry. Don't worry.
This year should be advertised with you singing that.
Okay. The Medrash says, Yovai Zov Shebe Mishkan, let the gold of the Mishkan come, v'yechaper al Zov Shebe Egel, and atone for what? For the golden getchka. So the Medrash is saying that the Mishkan was plan B. Plan A was the entire universe should be God's Mishkan. We couldn't handle it. We needed a golden image. So God loves us so much. He says, okay, you like gold, Goldstein, Goldberg. Take gold and do it my way. Make a golden mishkan. So in Judaism, the tikkun Moshe, the way you broke it is the what? Way you fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, the tikkun comes from the chet. So therefore, we sin by feasting. Now we're going to feast l'shem shamayim. Wow. Yom HaKippurim, a day like Purim. On Yom Kippur, the day before Yom Kippur, what do? We feast, and then the next day we what? We fast. On Purim, it's v'nahapachu. First we what? Fast, and then we what? I'm mixed up. Oh, v'nahapachu. Yom Kippurim. The festival to cast our lot. The festival to cast our lot. Purim. Why do we call the holiday Purim? Because the Jewish people had no business being in Paras. We don't remember that Koresh, remember Cyrus Vance? 50 years before Haman had already given the Jews permission to leave Babylon, Long Island, and come to Israel to rebuild the temple. 50 years before Haman. You can look at the book of Ezra. Only 42,000 Yidden answered the call. Millions remained behind. So God said, you fashed up the cup. So God had to send a Haman. A Haman. And still, we did tshuva. All the Jews became Haredi. But how come Mashiach didn't come? Because we remained in Babylon, Long Island. That's why Mashiach didn't come, even though they all became Shas, or what? They all became from. Kibul v'kiblu Yehudim. But we remained behind the Babylon, Long Island, and Persia. Some people just don't get it. Huh? So 50 years after Korash announced the Yidden can come home and build the temple, only 42,000 answered, millions stayed behind. Hashem sent Haman. And still, what? The vast majority of the Haredim remained behind in Williamsburg. I mean in Borough Park. I mean in Babylon, Long Island, unfortunately. So, Purim, the festival of the Castile Lot with Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. And that's God playing out the Purim story again now. We still have time, right? Rabbi Yaakov, you give me the signal. The gun goes off. You'll give me the signal. 5 o'clock. Okay? The Megillah's playing out, making in front of our eyes. It's just playing out in front of our eyes. But some people just never get it. They just don't get it, right?
Why do we eat hamantash in that?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Why do we eat hamantashin on Purim? Why do we call a cake after Haman? Why does he get the covet?
Were his ears three?
Because he did more for the tshuva movement than all the prophets in Tanakh, right?
Not his ears, his head.
So we name a cake after him, right? Why mechabed Haman? So Bnei Yissaschar says, my great Eltazayda, a hamantash is all covered up with dough. But on Purim, the jam peeks through. The jelly peeks through. Don't you get it? Hashem plays peekaboo with us. All year long, he's covered up, like the dough covers up the hamantash. But on Purim, the jelly peeks through. Peekaboo. You want to see God? Look closely. Look behind the mask. Don't be fooled by Hateva. Hateva Gematria. Elohim. Coinky dinky. Nature. The beautiful meadows, the butterflies. The incredible beauty of nature. It's Gematria God. Don't be fooled by the mask. That's the test. Wow. The Baal Shem Tov found a crying child, the holy Baal Shem Tov. And he said, my kind, why are you crying? Why are you crying, Moshe? The Baal Shem Tov asked, my kind, was weinst du? You know what he said? I'm playing hide and seek, and I'm hiding, and nobody is seeking me. So Baal Shem Tov began to cry. How do you think God feels? You know what Baal Shem Tov said? This crying child, he began to cry, the Baal Shem Tov. How do you think God feels? God is hiding behind the mask, but who is seeking him? Who is interested? Megillat Esther, legalot et Hester. Legalot et Hester. Reveal and uncover the hidden miracles and mysteries found in the Megillah. And the Megillah of our own lives, Yehuda. Every one of us is writing our Megillah. Whether we know it or not, all of us are writing our Megillah. Why is it happening to me? Everyone has hard times, hardships, anguish, and sorrows in life. We can't understand why. We say what Esther said. Eli, Eli, lama zaftani. In Psalm 22, my God, why have you abandoned me? But God didn't abandon her. He was hiding behind the mask. Only afterwards, looking back, did she see why she was the queen of the Persian Empire. When she was taken, there were prettier girls than her. Why did she win the grotesque beauty contest? Dafka her? A Beis Yaakov Mädel. There weren't prettier girls than her. Huh? Little did she know that 9 years later, when Haman was safely on his tree, then she realized why she won the beauty contest. That God did not abandon her. No, God never abandons a Yid. But when the going gets tough, the tough get going. To get the precious olive oil, Moshe, you got to crush the olive. So every one of us, God squeezes. It puts us through our own personal Megillah. What's the purpose, Rabbi Yaakov? When the going gets tough, The tough go shopping or the tough get going? You make the call. You make the call. Every one of us is writing our Megillah with all the twists and turns, seemingly random events. There's nothing random. How do you say coinky dinky in Hebrew? Mikre. Mikre, coinky dinky. I mean coincidence. Mikre, mem kuf reish hey. Rearrange the letters. What do you get? Rak me Hashem. But looks like a coinky dinky. That's no coinky dinky either. That the word mikre in Hebrew, coincidence, the letters rearranged are what? Rak me Hashem. But that's the mask. It's only a mask. Our lives, like the Megillah, all about hidden miracles, shrouded by the course of what? Natural events. Our tafkid as Jews is to connect all the dots and realize that all mikra is really what? Rakmei Hashem. Our mission in life is to unmask God, to see His guiding hand in all of our personal affairs. Just like in the Megillah. So how come God's name is not in the Megillah? How come God's name is not in the Megillah? It's the only book in Tanakh that doesn't have God's name. And the Rambam says when Mashiach comes, it'll be the only book in Tanakh that will remain besides the Torah. All the other books will be canceled, says Rambam. The only books that will remain is the Torah and what? Megillah. And it's the only book that doesn't have God's name. Why doesn't it have God's name? Because you don't need it. Every turn in the Megillah, you see God there. God, you can't fool me. Mordechai happened to overhear Bigson and Seresh plotting, right? He just happened to walk by to hear the king, those two ministers plotting to kill the king, right? And he saved the king's life. How come he didn't walk by 10 minutes later or earlier? You don't need, you know what God's name is not in the Megillah? Because every twist and turn, that's God. It's all Him. Wow, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Well, therefore Hashem's name is not in the Megillah. It's not necessary. When you remove God's mask, you realize that what? That it's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wow. Pretty interesting, right? So there's no open miracles in the book. But the greatest nest of all is what? God's constant supervision and controlling events. Even though it looks like He's not there, but He's always there wearing the mask. The Megillah is a jigsaw puzzle. All of our lives, Rabbi Yaakov, is a jigsaw puzzle. We have to put the pieces together. All of us are writing our own personal Megillah to connect the dots. So therefore, the entire Megillah is all the names of Hashem. So you don't need a formal name. Every word announces HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's the one behind the mask. Now, there's an amazing verse in Megillah. We still have a few minutes, no? In Megillah Esther, I got to point this out to you. There are no extra words in the holy Tanakh. It says, there was a Jewish man in Shushan Abira, chapter 2 in the Megillah. We're reading it when? Tomorrow, right? The rest of the world tonight, right? Okay. Chapter 2. A Jewish man was in Shushan. His name was Mordechai. Asher hagla miyushalayim. He was exiled from Jerusalem. Im hagola. Asher heglata. Asher hegla. Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel. Why keep repeating it? There was a Jewish man in Shushan Abira. His name was Mordechai, who was exiled from Jerusalem, exiled, and Nochamol exiled. So the Vilna Gaon is puzzled. I get the picture. Mordechai was exiled from where? Jerusalem. Now he's in Babylon, Long Island. So why does the Megillah in chapter 2 keep repeating, Asher hagla miyushalayim, im hagola, asher haglata, asher hegla, Nochamol, again? Keep repeating that Mordechai was exiled from Jerusalem. Isn't it quite redundant? Says the Vilna Gaon. Mordechai never forgot where he belonged. Even when he was in Babylon, Long Island, He kept repeating to his brethren, remember, we're in exile. Don't get too comfy in Borough Park, in Persia. Don't get too comfy. Yes, we're in Babylon and Persia. But remember, Hagla, Him Hagolah, Asher Hagla. Where do I belong? In Jerusalem. Never come in Babylon, Long Island for whatever. But don't get too comfy. You don't belong here. And Mordechai was steching them, guys. They didn't want to be reminded. Leave me alone already. I'm a good American. A good Persian. I'm a good German. Don't remind me who I am. You're giving me a bad hair day. You're a pest. He kept saying, Gola, Hagla, Imagola, Hegla. And therefore, fasten your seatbelts for this. We've got 5 minutes. He's called Ish Yemini. We know Ish Yemini. What does Ish Yemini mean? A man of Benjamin. So why don't you say Benjamin? Why go like this when you can go like this? Ish Yemini means he came from Benjamin. So say Benjamin. The Megillah knows how to spell Benjamin. Why is he called Ish Yemini? Are your seatbelt fastened for this one? You did Vilna Gaon's Kasha? Ish Yemini, the Talmud says Ish Yemini means what? He came from Benjamin. So why not say Benjamin? Says the Vilna Gaon. You know why he's called Ish Yemini? There's a pasuk in Tilim 137. Im eshkach Yerushalayim tishkach Yemini. Ooh. If I forget you, Jerusalem, tishkach Yemini. Benjamin kept saying, I'll never forget. I'll never forget. I don't belong in Babylon, Long Island. Im eshkach Yerushalayim tishkach Yemini. So therefore he was called Ish Yemini, even though he came from Benjamin. Right? He was getting the Yidden upset. They don't want to hear that kind of talk. J Street doesn't like that talk. The chief rabbi of Denmark doesn't like that talk. The rabbis in Europe, no, we don't want you to make Aliyah. What? It's just incredible. You hear the chief rabbi of Denmark? What right does he have to Benjamin and Tanyo, Benjamin, to sell the Yidden from Denmark and Holland to make Aliyah? We're happy here. Nobody said. He said it's not so bad in Denmark. They're only spitting and cursing us. They're only spitting and cursing on us, but they're not killing us yet. Well, what right does Benjamin, I couldn't believe it, Benjamin Netanyahu say come back to Israel? Let him mind his own business. The chief rabbi of Ukraine said the same thing. Some people just don't get it. It's Megillah again, right?
Speak for me, she said.
What?
Senator Feinstein said he doesn't speak for me.
Right. L'chein ish yemini. Im eshkach Yerushalayim, tishkach yemini. Don't get too comfortable in Lakewood or Teaneck, New Jersey. So why did God send a Haman? For the same reason God sent an Obama, that the Jews of America should wake up and realize you have to come home. So Obama will do more for Aliyah than what? Than all the 48 prophets. That's pretty amazing. So just like we have Haman Tashin, we're going to have Obama Tashin. We're going to have Obama Tashin.